Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another Nextiva webinar. And today we are joined by two of my favorite people in the world. One of them, his name is Adam Goyette. He happens to be the VP of Marketing at G2. The other is a good friend of mine who I actually have known for quite some time now. We met up in LA a couple years ago and we've been good buddies ever since. His name is Kevin Dorsey. And he happens to be the VP of Inside Sales at PatientPop. So, gentlemen, welcome and thanks for being with us.
Yeah, man, excited to be here.
All right. So we were supposed to have Tara Bryant, who is the VP of Sales at Nextiva, join us. She had to drop off, unfortunately, but that's good news for you in the audience because that means we have another open slot on the Crowdcast. And what we will probably do at some point is invite people up to join and jump on the screen share and just chat it up with us about growth strategies for 2020.
Awesome. Love it.
What I want to let you guys know about is a couple of housekeeping items real quick. So if you have a question, there's a ask a question button at the bottom of the Crowdcast. Just go ahead and drop it in there and we will address the questions as they come in. By the way, we have about 330 people registered for this webinar. It looks like there's about 50 of you live right now, which is awesome. I expect that number to grow. So be as interactive and engaging as you want. We got a chat bar on the side panel, so if you guys want to chat it up or leave commentary as we go along, feel free to do that. And by the way, this is also going to be recorded, and you'll get an automatic replay if you got to drop off. So if you've got to do that, no big deal. So real quick, before we start, one thing I like to do is see who's with us, where you from, where you repping, what city are you from? I already see Martin from Houston. What up? Rich from Charleston, South Carolina. Kevin's in LA. Adam, where you repping?
Chicago.
Chicago. Oof, I wouldn't want to be there this time of year. I'm a New York boy, as you guys see, but at the current time, I'm in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. So I see Andrew from Colorado. Welcome. Marta from Poland. Wow. Omar from Vancouver, welcome. Jane from Andover. Mike Powers from California. Becky Knight from Wyoming. Jan Ferguson from Tennessee. What up, Jan? Darren from Deerfield Beach, Florida. What up? Sid from Toronto. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, keep dropping them in there. Sunny and warm Pittsburgh. Matt Friel from Circle City, Indianapolis. Hello from South Africa. Wow, Tian, welcome. Welcome, everybody. All right, so we got a nice, diverse group here. I love to see it. What up? Another Chicago person here, Eric Bernhold. Welcome, Eric. Thank you. All right, cool. So, we're going to dive right into this. And Wolf from Seattle, welcome, by the way. I see you. So we're going to dive right into this. If you guys don't know, I run the demand generation program at Nextiva. And basically, here's a question I get from people. And maybe you guys will start the discussion like this. I get people all the time asking me, Nextiva is a business phone, traditionally has been a business phone service provider. And, you guys have some other products as well. Why would you do a webinar that has nothing to do with what you sell? What's the point? Like even people internally, like, product teams and, customer support teams and sales teams, how is this going to fuel our pipeline? Aren't webinars supposed to be lead generating activities? And my response to them is like, look, that's what everyone does, right? Every company in the world, their goal is to host webinars, to put you in some kind of funnel and then just start selling you shit. But my interpretation of what webinars are really supposed to be are educational, insightful, and valuable. And my goal really is to build trust with the audience, trust in the brand, and awareness about who we are and what we do. We want to earn your trust, not your dollar signs, at least not right away. And that the idea is that when the time comes for you to maybe need a solution, that you will think of us, you will think of me, you'll think of Kevin, you will think of Adam from G2, whatever it is, and you'll remember us and you'll come back and you'll hit us up. And if anything, you'll build a friendship with us, a relationship, and we play the long game. That's what it's about. So just to clear heads on that. But anyway, let's dive into the topics for today. So the first topic is sales execution. Now that's kind of, Kevin, I'll direct this at you. Sales execution is a big thing now, but I mean, we could talk about outbound, we could talk about inbound, but maybe we'll start with outbound, and maybe we'll just start by like the process that you guys have at PatientPop. How does the sales organization work, and what are some things you're doing to kind of fine tune and tighten up process and execution in 2020?
So, I mean, when it comes, I guess there's a few things here, right? Just how to get people to execute in general, and then how to execute on outbound. So I definitely approach outbound, I think, a little bit different than a lot of leaders. Like, I do use a pretty strong all-bound approach outbound, right? So I have emails that are designed only to get a click. Why? Because then you psycho marketers will follow that person everywhere across the web, right? Building awareness, right? I take from marketing. I learn what the best click-through rates are. I learn what the best headlines are. I find out what the best assets are that are inbound, and I turn those and go outbound, right? So we have different cadences by persona. We have different cadences by like pain point that we identify online. And then we approach it really through any channel that works, right? We cold call, we cold email, we social, we direct mail. I have field reps that knock on doors. Like, we're going to be everywhere our prospects are. And a lot of the messaging is very education based, right? To your earlier point of why do webinars, I'm a big believer that if you can educate, if you can share knowledge, that's what sticks. Tips and shit, like that doesn't stick. Like people, oh, that was a cool tip and they're done. If I can share something with you, there's a lot of education based. If you were to read most of our emails, they're mostly about the prospects, not us, right? And so we work those cadences to completion, nurture them long term, and bring them back through. So it's a combination of all channels, but leveraging information from marketing is an important part of what I do. Like, marketing tends to know more data than sales does around how to behave when there's not a person involved. I want to know what people are searching for. If I know what they're searching for, there's my subject line. Right. So it's things like that of using both sides of marketing and sales. That's how we go outbound. And then in terms of execution, man, it's a lot of documenting. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of like just repetition. We talk about this stuff all the time. My managers look at it. We look at it. Like my team knows, especially my managers, very rarely do I talk results. I talk behaviors.
Right. So, I mean, there's so many good things in there. We can unpack a bunch of them. I mean, one thing I love that you said is, you look at marketing keyword data, for example, to test subject lines, because you want to use the most commonly used language and get people to understand that and click through. That's obviously brilliant. So I want to get to Adam too in a second, but I'm just wondering, like, what is the breakdown of the sales organization at PatientPop, and how do you manage it all?
How do I manage it all? Yeah. Still figuring all that out.
Yeah.
I have SDRs. I have inside closers that are full cycle. I have inside closers that are partially supported. I have field reps out in territories across the country. Some of them are fully like have an SDR. Some do not. We're continuing to scale that out. I have channel sales rep and channel sales managers, right? So that managing relationships, getting leads, things like that. So I have kind of sales in every aspect. And how do I manage it? Really, it's one through my managers, through my leaders, right? And asking them to make the right decisions, but also a lot of just clear communication. Like, here's what we're focused on. Here's what we're going to go do with it. Let's go execute on that, and not always getting distracted by the shiny object. Like I fall victim to that all the time. I'm like, ooh, let's go do this now. Like fundamentals, and then behaviors. Behaviors are everything to me. So I don't care what the result is. I want to know how we got it, because ways we could have gotten it better or faster or more. That's what I care about. It's very easy to get revenue blindness, especially when you have a big org like this. It's like, are we hitting the number? Yay, we hit the number. But the how starts to matter more, right? So it's a lot of behavioral conversations and like checklists and documentations and things like that.
Exactly right. I mean, when you get blinded by that number, you could have had a horrible like behavior-based quarter or month, but because a whale deal came in at the end, you maybe hit your revenue quota, and you didn't necessarily have a great month though in terms of execution. So I love that learning there. I mean, passing the mic over to Adam, I mean, did anything Kevin say resonated with you and maybe align or maybe not align to how you guys are doing things at G2?
Yeah, so two things that stood out to me. One was on the leveraging marketing for sales emails, because I think like good marketers do the same thing to sales, right? So I actually, like, one of the things I always do is I always get on sales calls and listen to calls all the time, because I want to know what reps are actually saying on the phone. Like, does it even align with like the messaging marketing putting out? And then also like, I get amazing ideas of like, oh wow, I really like the way that person worded that, right? And it's a lot of times they say without even like realizing. I'm like, hey, what did you just say? And then it's like, what do you mean? Right? And it's like like they're the front line of actually having to explain beyond like the ad that just catches someone's attention and gets them to click. Like the reality is like then I have to take that all the way down to them, right? And like there's a lot of things that happen in between that. But I think it's like, how are we positioning and messaging there? Like there's a ton of insight you can get from a marketing side. Like if you're not doing that and you're not listening to sales calls, it's a huge miss. And I think the other thing is like, it was kind of funny to hear you say like, I'm not focused on the number, which is like rare for like a salesperson to be like, I don't care about the number, right? But like, it's not that you don't care. It's like, it's a little bit like that's the end result. But if you don't know how it's being made, like I could randomly hit whatever. And you said it could be a big deal, but then there could be an underlying problem where the next quarter you miss wildly and you're gonna have no idea why. And a lot of times people don't get like data driven until like they have to and there's a problem. But they miss the big advantage of being like data driven. Is like when it's working is when you want to be looking at stuff, because that's when you can be like, wow, this is really working. Let's double down on that. Let's do more of this, or this cadence is working. So I think it's like people too often only just go to the numbers and look down like behind the curtain and see what's happening when things go sideways, which is like the wrong approach to it.
Yeah.
From marketing, right?
Totally. I mean, one thing we're moving away from at Nextiva, I mean, at least since I've been around, is moving away from like measuring email campaigns with vanity metrics. So even things like open rates, right? And like click-through rates. Really the main thing that matters is the response rates and the sentiment of those responses.
Yeah.
And what kind of opportunities were created as a result of those. And it's really hard to, first of all, it's really hard to get, people into that mindset of like, your traditional email metrics are kind of worthless nowadays. That's a hard pill for some people to swallow. But also just, getting them to think about, was this so poorly done or poorly executed that it actually had negative? Were there more opt-outs than unique clicks? Right. What is your click-through to opt-out ratio? Kevin, it looked like you had something to add.
Because that is something though that they're outdated if you don't do anything with them, right? So like I look at all my cadences and what I'm doing on a monthly or quarterly basis is building super cadences. Mm-hmm. Which email had the highest response rate? Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. Which email had the highest open rate? Cool. Now
mm-hmm. Yep.
Because that's where, it's like open rates don't matter. They do matter. Someone can't respond to an email if they don't open it, right? Click-through rates do matter if I'm trying to get them into one of your guys' marketing funnels, right? Like we have marketing assets that I send outbound to get them into that, right? So it's using the metrics the right way. I want to see which one has the best response rate. Now, if I can get that one more opens, what happens? I get more.
You get more, yeah.
So it's looking at if I see something that has a bigger click-through rate that's later in the email cadence, I'm gonna move that forward, right?
That's right.
People look at these metrics like they're static. If you use them, they matter and they matter a lot. But if you just look at a campaign and go, "Oh, open rate was low," then
yeah. Exactly right. It's leading versus lagging indicators at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with marketing, and maybe we'll pivot to the next topic here. When it comes to demand generation, you're talking about traffic and lead conversion from like a landing page perspective. A lot of marketing teams may just look at, well, we had a lot of traffic this month to the blog. That's great, but it didn't necessarily have leads. And then your leader may say, well, the blog may not be a great investment because it doesn't generate leads. But actually, you're measuring the wrong KPI in this case, because when was the last time you ever read a blog post and then bought anything, at least directly after that? Never, right? No one does that. No one signs up for a SaaS demo after reading a blog post. It rarely happens. But if you capture that email, maybe offer a valuable piece of content, and then later on down the road, when something happens in their business and they need you, you'll be there. So maybe we can pivot to the next topic. But I did put a poll, by the way, in the bottom, and I wanted to know who writes sales emails at your company. And the answer potential was marketing, sales, or other. 75% said sales. Now, I want to just like give a moment for Kevin to respond to that and Adam, but is it the right thing or the wrong thing to do to allow sales to control the narrative there and write their own emails, or should marketing control the narrative and be writing the sales emails? Maybe Kevin, you go first and pass it to Adam.
So if my VP of marketing, Jared Joseph, was on this call, we were talking about this green room beforehand, like the B2B B2B exchange, whatever conference. We presented it last year, Jewel, right? Oh my God, a VP of sales and a VP of marketing on the stage at the same time. And what we talked about is like that alignment there. I believe sales should write the emails, but marketing should provide the language that they're seeing work. That's the blend, right? Like, so what we joked about is I have the heart of a salesperson and the mind of a marketer, and he's the way around. He has the mind of a salesperson, but the heart of a marketer, right? So salespeople, like I'll just call all y'all out, most of you don't write good emails. It's because you don't know marketing. It's because you don't know copywriting. It's because you don't know behaviorals. You don't know direct response marketing. You don't know how to get opens and like you don't know. So yeah, you wrote it. But then the flip side, and I'll pass this to marketing, is marketing oftentimes writes very fluffy emails. The industry leading.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Okay? It becomes very fluffy, and then salespeople don't like it, so they write their own shit. So it needs to be a merge, but getting the right info from marketing to be used by sales. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. So at G2 we have, so it's a little bit, it depends, right? So I think like on our inbound sequences and some of those things that are set up, those are marketing driven, marketing rights. The reality is, I think for us, it's like when we look at scale and we want to say like what emails are working, back to your point, Kevin, it's almost impossible if every rep is cloning the email and then making their own version of it and taking this out and taking that out, right? And I've seen people like your point, like where it's like, hey, we're trying to get people to click on this so we can, retarget them down the road, and people take out call to actions and people do these things. So we have marketing drive the emails, and the person we have write the emails is amazing direct response copywriter. So it's like, it's not fluff. So for us, but then the other big thing is like at the feedback loop, right? So what are we missing here? And like what sales, like what would you want to send? Like where would you improve this? Where are you seeing responses? But we look at like the programs too as a whole, and say like, okay, like how many meetings are being booked just straight off the emails, right? And so some of our sequences, we're getting like 7%. And if we can get that to get up to 9%, like that's a huge lift for us. And so like getting the data and the learnings of like the mass sends is super beneficial for us. But the reality is like reps still on the one-off emails after a phone call are still sending their own emails, right? Like the marketing emails are to a point in the conversation, and then it's the salesperson. Nobody wants a marketing email then, right? They want to talk to the person they've been talking to.
And actually, more credit coming back to the marketers here real quick. You understand what optimization is, right? You guys get that because you're used to working in micros to get macros, right? What are the small changes you can get to go get the big result? Salespeople generally don't think that way. They change the whole fucking email, right? This email didn't work. They change the entire email versus a marketer more often than not will go, okay, the open was good. So back to the vanity metrics. I got to, right? The open was good, but the response was bad. So I'm going to keep the subject line. I'm going to keep the first sentence, but then I need to change the copy. Marketers think that way because you've been looking at headlines and buttons and colors and images. You look at keywords, you see what's being bid on, you know what's working at micro levels. Salespeople don't think that way. They tend to just scrap the whole email. And salespeople, however many we got on, salespeople love the number one. If it worked once,
it works indefinitely.
If it doesn't work once, like salespeople love the number one, right? Like that magic line worked once, that magic email worked once, and then they're telling everybody about it for years, right? Yeah. Marketers have a little bit more of an analytical eye on things, and that's why I think that alignment has to be so strong.
That's right. I mean, it's back to, like when we do landing page testing, for example. It's real. You're not going to get conclusive results if you have two completely different pages, right? It's just classic testing principles here. So the same works with emails and sales. Like Kevin said, if you write the email completely different subject line, different cadence, different everything, it's going to be way too difficult to compare apples to apples. You're likely going to have false positives, and a botched experiment. So that's where marketing and sales can kind of, you know, work hand in hand there. Adam, did you have anything else to add before we maybe move on to the next topic?
No, I think we're good to move down. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So we got a question from Sales Stack. What up, Chris Ortolano? He says, I'm gonna put this up on the screen here. So, are persona profiles dead? If not, how do you create and update realistic, relevant personas that work for sales and marketing? This is a huge one. I mean, Adam, maybe I'll pass the mic to you. You can take a stab at this first, then we'll go to Kevin, and then I'll tell you guys how we're kind of running it here. So, Adam, pass the mic to you, buddy.
I don't think personas are dead. I think this idea, though, of like the traditional, like, you know, it's John, the marketer kind of thing, and these very generic things aren't really valuable to sales. Like, the whole goal of the persona is like, can we be better at targeting and messaging for marketing, and can sales be better in a conversation with someone who fits that persona, right? Yeah. A lot of times they're just so high level where it's like, it's not valuable, right? So like if we sell to demand gen marketers, like there are very similar traits to how most demand gen marketers are measured, what they care about, speaking their language, all those sorts of things. Those are personas that are true. And so I think like personas, the way I view it is like, how do we set it up in a way that it's like discovery based of like, here are the questions you should ask to get to the end result? Because if you're selling G2 to a demand gen marketer, that's a different proposition than if you're selling G2 to more of a brand PR marketer, right? They're going to care about reviews. They're going to care about how it's syndicated. Demand gen is going to care about buyer intent. So I think it's like aligning the persona more with your actual, like what you sell, and like also get into the weeds with the sales people of like, what do you actually say to this person versus that person? And like, what's the difference? Like salespeople have very different talk tracks depending on who they're talking to. Like they're already doing persona based, whether you know it or not, as a marketer, and you put it into a fancy PowerPoint. So I don't think it's dead. I think it's just, it has to evolve beyond just like a fluffy slide that marketing updates once a year and shares out and then nobody ever looks at. It needs to be more actionable. Like, hey, if you have a demand gen marketer, here are the discovery questions you should look for and ask, because once you have this information, you would know how to do these things, right? And same thing, like knowing those discoveries questions also feeds into the pain points of what you're trying to get to as a marketer and what you should be kind of positioning as. So.
Yeah, I love that. Kevin, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, he nailed it there. The personas need to be actionable. The reason why most of them are dead is because they're not actionable. It is just a something on there. You're still leaving it up to the rep to figure out what to do with it. What's also shocking to me is most people don't talk to customers when they build their persona.
I was just gonna say that. Yep.
They don't even talk to customers to build it. So it's like, well, no wonder. Right? So like when I started here, I spent my first 2 weeks in CS. I spoke to over 50 customers in my first 2 weeks, right? And I'm asking sales related questions, right? Now, like, you know, why did you buy? What problems were you hoping to solve? What was the sales process like for you? How do you like to buy? How do you like to be communicated with? And you use this, right? So for example, how do you think most doctors like to be communicated with, phone or email?
Probably phone, if I had to guess.
Absolutely not. It's email, right? Doctors don't have desks. They're doctors, right? They're working, right? They massively prefer email. All of our cadences were phone call based at that time, right? So like that's using information from them that you can leverage. But from the marketing standpoint, what are good marketing questions? If you went surveyed 100 of your customers, what would you want to know as a marketer? Where do you consume content? What type of content do you like to consume? Do you even like webinars? Right? Like you talk to your customer base to build the persona cards, and most people don't. That's why they're dead, is because someone in a room made the persona card. Maybe they one customer.
That's right. That's right.
Marketers also suffer from like this idea that they need to be doing everything because everyone else is, right? So like you touched on like content and how you consume content. Like there's companies out there that target like construction workers that have blogs, and that's like one of their big focuses. Like someone who's working on construction is like not reading a blog about construction. Like that might be good for like some ranking or whatever you're trying to do, but like the true demand gen piece of it, like you're way off the mark for like how you're actually looking.
But to Gaetano's point a little bit earlier though too, find out where they read.
Yep.
Where do they read?
Yep.
That's where you're putting your display ads. That's where your partnerships come from. That's where you go with this info. with these persona cards, we don't ask them the right questions. So then we don't get the right answers.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything you guys said. I mean, I just dropped a link to a UX audience building kind of, it's somewhat persona, somewhat user experience, somewhat audience research template, but essentially this was the exact process I used when I took over the marketing at Sales Hacker to discover what all the things that Kevin and Adam basically just said, but how to conduct personal interviews with customers and maybe even prospects in your database who have not converted yet. And then all sorts of things that I asked them to determine how I'm gonna, build a marketing strategy around this. So, a lot of marketers or startup heads of marketing or maybe even mid-sized company head of marketing, the first thing they may do sometimes is just kind of get right into the tactics. But I always go to the source, start with the customer, start with the audience, figure out who you're marketing to, where do they consume content, and not just something that a bunch of marketers got in a room and made up, put on a card, full dead, put all these stupid names on it, and the age range and demographic data around that, but you actually don't know what their daily lives are like. So Chris, I hope that answered the question for you, buddy. I invited him up onto the screen and he rejected me. So I'll assume that means that we did satisfy the question. So I'll hit done answering on that one. We have another question about attribution, lead gen activities, and A/B testing. This is somewhat of a three-part question almost, but I mean, it sounds like the question is really around what is the right way to do A/B testing for creating the best UX personas and users. So, I mean, what I'll say to you, the question came from Sid. So, Sid, what I would suggest is probably just checking out that Sales Hacker link that I dropped in the comments there, and that should give you like most of the answers you're looking for. When it comes to A/B testing, I mean that could be a whole webinar in itself, so I probably won't open the can of worms on that one. So with that being said, I think we'll just move on to the next topic that we had in the list here. So the next topic is, how do you coach AEs through the objection handling process? Now, there's a lot of ways to go about doing this. You can use tools. You can kind of go, the nuts and bolts, old school manual way. You can use a combination of the two. Maybe I'll pass the mic to Kevin first, and I'll let you answer how you guys go about objection handling at PatientPop. Maybe some of the most common objections, and how do you guys prepare for those, and how do you answer them on the battlefield? And then I'll pass the mic to Adam.
Obviously, one is just prep. Right, like that's the beauty of sales is what the most common objections are.
Right.
They'll act shocked when they get hit with one. Like there are 5 to 6 objections that if you know how to handle, you'll be perfectly fine. Right. So one is identifying them, and then 2, like what we teach here, we call it 8-miling, is getting ahead of it. Right. So like the reason I call it 8-miling, right? If you remember the movie 8 Mile, if anyone saw it, right? What did Eminem do in that final battle? He said all the bad things about himself first.
Yeah.
And there's actually a lot of psychological power there because you're the one owning it. So it dampers the objection because you're the one that said it. So I know this is more expensive than most things out there. I know this is going to take a lot of energy to try to work through and to implement. You own the objection, and it brings it down. It also brings the fear away from the rep, right? So the objection, get ahead of it. Don't handle it. Get ahead of it. When you own it, it dampens it. It makes it a lot less of a problem. And also, too, as a buyer, when you say what I'm thinking, what does that do for our relationship?
Trust.
Yeah, you build trust, exactly.
Trust. It's like, oh, wow, this dude gets it. Gets it, right? So it's getting ahead of it and actually saying it and handling it before it even gets brought up, right? So that's the first part. And then the second part, though, which is important, is this is where collateral comes in. I don't want sales collateral. I want objection handling collateral.
Right.
I don't need a one-sheeter that says all the things that we do because we just got off a goddamn demo. They know all the things that we do. I need a one-sheeter talking about why it's worth the price. I need a one-sheeter talking about implementation. I need a one-sheeter talking about. I want you go one level further. We did this at Snag Nation. I want testimonials that handle the objection. Right? Why it was worth the cost. I want someone there, like, because most testimonials that we come from marketing, right? I love it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, no, but if that testimonial is like, I was afraid of how much this cost, it was more than what I was spending. But here's why it was worth it. Like, totally different testimonial, right? Actually, here we go. So I had marketing make these for me earlier this year. I've got cards, right, that have the name of the practice, and on the backside, the problem that they were dealing with, the results they got from PatientPop, and a testimonial at the bottom that addresses that problem. This is how you handle objections post-sale, right? You get the collateral that actually supports the objections. You don't need collateral to sell your product. If it were that fucking easy, I wouldn't need salespeople.
That's right.
I could just send collateral, right? It's the objection handling that you need in collateral.
It's a good thing you don't care about numbers if you were going to send.
A lot of companies get that wrong, right? Like they'll set up their sales teams with like, battle cards with this is what you say when this competitor, comes up in the conversation, or this is how you talk about this feature. But rarely do you get, like what Kevin just said, essentially social proof, customer proof that handles that objection for you. So you meet it ahead of time. Kevin, I love that. Adam, I'll pass the mic to you. So what's going on in G2 with the world of objection handling, and does marketing play any role in that?
Yeah, so I get on the front lines on this a lot, just because the persona we sell to is the job I have here. So most of the times it's the VP of marketing and demand gen signing the contract. So I get pulled into a lot of these conversations. I think the biggest thing were two areas where I think people get hung up on the sales side. One is like in talking to marketers, and I'm sure it's like anything else, is like pretending like a little bit more than you do, right? So like if you don't know and you're talking to a marketer and they're bringing up multi-touch attribution or whatever random thing that marketers are talking about, it's probably the same with doctors, and you just pretend like you're going along with it like you kind of end up in a world where it like back to the trust thing, you kind of lose trust in the fact of like, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. How would they know what's the best solution for me? And then the other side of it too is like a lot of the objections, if you know the end goal, it's easy to go against those objections. So if you know what their goals are, for instance, like the big objection we get a lot of times is, why would I invest in G2 when I can just invest in other like lead gen programs and put that money into Facebook, right?
Right.
And I want leads, right? And it's like, yes, but early in the call, you told me like you want leads, but when I dug 2 questions deeper, like you want leads because you're measured on pipeline sourced from marketing, right? And like ultimately what the board cares about is how much revenue marketing is sourcing for the spend you guys are putting out there. So if I can actually show you how we could leverage G2 to increase your top of the funnel efficiency because you're targeting people in market and equipping sales team with customer quotes, right? Because you have amazing third-party reviews on G2, and that increases your close rate by 1%. Like then I'm actually helping you on all the marketing stuff you wanted, right? And at the end of the day, like you're going to get more pipeline, you're going to get more revenue, which is a different way of going about it. I think those are some of the things of like knowing the goals and like what they're measured on and like what they care about makes it, I think, a little bit easier to handle the objections. And then it's like, to Kevin's point, it's way more for me to trust a person like that as a buyer versus somebody who's just trying to sell me everything and saying yes to everything, right?
Yeah. I love it. It looks like we have a question that just came in. Let's pull this one up. So this one is from Steven. Thank you, Steven, for the question. It says, and by the way, Shannon just joined us from Boca Raton, Florida. Welcome. So here's the question. When coaching on handling objections, how are you getting sellers, whether it's SDRs or AEs, to respond through the lens of why it makes sense for the buyer to do XYZ instead of, I want you to do this because I want money? So basically I think unpacking the question, it's really about having empathetic and more authentic response to the objection rather than just giving a very sort of basic one that, is more oriented around, well, I just really need to hit my quota this month. I really hope that this very generic answer satisfies your question because I need to make this sale. So, Kevin, I'll pass the mic to you. What's your tips for coming across more empathetically and authentically while objection handling? I think you're muted, by the way, Kevin. There you go. Yeah.
Who muted me? Someone muted me. All right.
It's all good.
So I think it's back to the original point I made before. It's getting ahead of it, first of all. If you handle the objection ahead of time, it allows you to maintain more of like a confident or calm tone. Right? We got to remember, as a salesperson, objections are scary. And
right.
You panic a little bit, and that fear sets in. So that's one. But the other big part of it is practice. So if the only time they're handling the objection is on the call, they're always going to sound bad handling, right? You need to practice this objection over and over and over and over again. My reps know this. I'll do this to them. I spot check all the time. Oh, you're getting coffee? Hey, how's it going? Oh, it's good. Hey, so what do we do? Because what do you do, right, is a very common objection people don't know how to handle. They don't know how to handle that. What do you do? What is this call about? You need to say that hundreds of times until you have it, right? So that's the side that people miss, is like they try to handle the objection on the call and they only get to say it once. They should be doing it 10, 15 times every single day before a demo, before a call. What are the objections I could get? How am I going to handle it? And then go. So practice also builds authenticity because you actually believe what you're saying.
Yeah. Adam, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I don't manage the sales team, but that seems spot on today. But yeah, I would not want to get coffee with it.
Yeah. And I mean, look, like it is also about like practice and repetition. Like, one thing that you should do is, if like every organization has the target buyer internally. So like if like G2, right, you guys sell to demand gen. I think even you might have asked me for hey, can you talk to one of my SDRs who I'm training and just, let them kind of just dig into you a little bit, find out what matters to demand gen. Like yep. you should, like all companies should be doing that. Like we sell to Nextiva, we sell to business owners, but we also sell to IT, and we have IT internally. So guess what we do? Hey, Mr. CIO, can you sit with our sales team for like 30 minutes and just, field questions and go through how you would respond to some of these, scenarios? And that, like Kevin said, building that muscle memory and that repetition is going to naturally help your reps to overcome those objections more authentically and empathetically. I will also say that it's, price obviously is something that does come up, and it, almost always, maybe even always, it's never really about price. It's about you didn't convey the value. That is one that always comes up quite a lot. So I think that did answer the question for you, Stephen. Thank you for asking it, by the way. All right, cool. So let's keep this show going. So let's now talk about Adam. Let's pass the mic to you first on this one. And Kevin, it'd be interesting to hear your thought from a sales leader perspective. But paid media acquisition and paid media campaigns within the context of demand gen and lead gen. So many sales leaders tend to have a predisposition that paid leads and leads that come through paid sources are typically not as good as organic sources. So an example of this might be a cold, lookalike audience that was uploaded into Facebook and profiled and pulled in through that channel, or perhaps even a LinkedIn ad that got a lead in the door that way. Maybe you are advertising a G2 white paper that had the biggest trends and market leaders in UCAS, right? I'm just throwing something out there. Versus someone came to the website, filled out a form. Yes, I want to talk to sales right now.
Yeah.
So before we get into like the nitty gritty behind paid lead gen tactics, Kevin, do you have any thoughts or experience around how sales perceives and treats paid leads that have, let's just say they've gone through the process of being scored and qualified, and they're ready for sales. Do you have any thoughts on how sales perceives and treats paid lead source leads from paid sources versus organic sources?
So yes, I mean, we look at all of this. I just don't, once it's in the salesperson's hands, how they treat it to me should be the same, right? Like, obviously a demo request, like there's a little bit, like aggressive is the wrong word. We follow up a little bit stronger on a demo request than we do on a white paper. Like, you got to know when they're coming. But
yeah,
once it's in my hands, like, we owe it to marketing to work them the right way. That was just randomly searching, you know, something. They went to a blog, they went somewhere else, they paid on a display ad, going to convert lower. Yeah, but we have benchmarks for that. So I have benchmarks for white paper download conversions on what we expect, demo requests, scanners, and we hold people to that accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you reveal the lead source to the reps, or do you keep it anonymous?
Yeah, like yeah, I want them to know. Like, I want them to know if it was white paper. I want them to know what asset brought them into us. And I don't tell them if it was a direct, an organic, or a PPC. Mm-hmm. It's how they got, what form did they come through? That's what they know, and they know how to work them differently.
Yep. Awesome. I love that. So Adam, over to you, man. So you posted about this the other day. I obviously responded. You know, G2, you guys have come up with a magical sort of wizard-like process around Facebook acquisition for B2B. And I'll tell you right now, the perception generally amongst most demand marketers, especially in B2B, is that Facebook is somewhat of a declining channel.
Yep. And
that it's only worthwhile at this stage when you are retargeting leads that have already somewhat interacted with the brand. Yep. And that kind of the process that you outlined is far more difficult to achieve. It's a far more difficult execution. So maybe I'll just take a step back and let you explain how you guys were doing it. How are you guys approaching Facebook lead acquisition at G2 with more, you know, you have more tools and more data to support it, but it sounds like you have a really nice system set up. So how does it all work?
Yeah, so I think one thing is, like, just when you think of like paid as a whole, as a channel, like everyone treats every channel separate, which is kind of the wrong way to go about doing it, right? They set up their targeting in like Facebook and they run Facebook ads. They set up their targeting in LinkedIn and run LinkedIn ads, and they do paid search and retargeting, and everything's like almost its own separate silo. But the reality is, you know, Kevin is on Facebook the same way he's on Instagram, the same way he's on LinkedIn, the same way he's doing searches. He's the same person across all of these, right? And so the interesting thing about Facebook is marketers have a really hard time targeting in B2B people on Facebook because most people don't update their career information, right? So like if I'm searching for VPs in demand gen, one is most people don't even have that. People used to put like random stupid things on there, or they don't have anything in there, right? And I know Facebook's pushing more to get people's information there, like they're pushing all the information. But then also if you think about what you signed up with, I didn't sign up with Facebook with my G2 email address, right? So I signed up, you know, however 15 years ago with a Hotmail address, right? Or whatever it was at the time, right? And so like I can't target off the domain either, so it makes it really hard. So one of the things I think, a couple ways we've gone about doing it, is partner with a company that allows us to, like, with cookie pools and stuff, to identify like, hey, Kevin here with, you know, PatientPop, here's his email address. We've also identified through the cookie pool, he's also using this Gmail address. So we feel pretty confident that he's the same person logging into both these systems. So let's target that person on Facebook, right? And so we've seen our match rates and a lot of like who we're targeting on there jump, you know, closer to like 40%, whereas like traditionally it was like 5%, right? The reality is like they're on Facebook. They're not using Facebook. It's the third biggest website. So like the fact that people don't try to figure out the workarounds to get there is kind of crazy. And then the other thing that we've done a lot to like circumvent this quality thing, is I think like the conversation around quality is a legit conversation, and especially marketers have kind of self-inflicted that on themselves, because I think a lot of times people have kind of fluffed up numbers through doing paid lead gen just to hit a target, or they don't care about conversion through the sales funnel, right? It's like, hey, we can get, you know, white paper downloads for $5 a piece, pass them all over, And then sales is like, hey, the leads aren't converting as well. And marketing's like, hey, why are you working them more? And it's like, well, the leads suck. It's like this back and forth because I think marketers we're gaming for a number. So the other thing we do, and I hate to even like say this as like because it sounds like a product push, but it's not, like, is we use our own buyer intent data to actually like get the list of companies who are actively in market. And we're not the only intent providers out there, but like for us, it's also like, if you think about traditional SaaS, right? Like if someone signs up, with Nextiva, most likely they're signing a contract of a certain length, right? So if I'm just targeting based off persona, I'm now wasting a year, 2 years of advertising trying to get Kevin to actually like sign up for Nextiva, right? And it's not going to happen. He's not going to have any interest. He might engage with some of the content and some of that stuff, but he's not going to realistically probably go to buy until 3-4 months out. So I think we've been building out audiences based off our own intent data to say like, hey, these are the people who are active on G2, reading reviews about Nextiva and people in that category. Like this is the pool of audience we want to go after. And so it's a little bit higher quality. It's like fishing with a spear rather than like a net on Facebook, and using tools to like match the personal to the professional.
Right. I mean, I love that so much. For one, this is something that's really almost 95% of the time. I mean, that's a random stat, but the overwhelming majority of the time when you're doing outbound and you're not using intent data, the person that you're marketing to is not in market for your solution. They didn't wake up one day and say, I need to get a better, business VoIP system, or I didn't wake up today and need a better CRM, and I didn't wake up today to get, insert XYZ solution, right? So what you're doing is actually getting a real pulse on, okay, there's activity happening, there's a surge of activity happening that indicates that this person may be reasonably in market for this type of solution, and that obviously improves your chances quite a lot. But there's a question from Tyson. And he wants to know, are you able to share the company you're working with to connect the corporate email with the personal one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why I'm not. We're using metadata to do it. I mean, there's other tools out there.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on G2 and read reviews of all those tools, but we're using metadata. It basically can match the same audience across LinkedIn for us or any other platform.
Okay, and have you found that? I'm going to drop the link into the chat, by the way. Have you found that solution to be effective and relatively good match rates?
Yeah, so we found it to be very successful for us. Like I said, we went from like low single-digit match rates and closer to like 40%.
Okay.
So, and interestingly enough, Olivier, who was sales here at G2 and a good friend, he's actually president over at Metadata now as well. So,
okay.
If you end up reaching out to Metadata, tell them I sent you, and you get a good deal or a higher price. I'm not sure.
Very cool. Thank you for answering that. So we have a question from Matt Friel. I'm going to put this one up. This is a really good one. This may be the best one of the day. So Matt wants to know, and Kevin, this will be directed to you first, and then we'll go to Adam, and then I'll share some ideas around this as well. But what does your favorite outbound sales sequence look like? Whether it's, and Kevin, you started off this discussion by saying you guys are kind of omni-channel in your approach. So, within the realm of phone, email, text, LinkedIn. I'm not sure if doctors are on LinkedIn, but I guess you'll share that with us soon. What is the duration of your ideal sequence? How many touches, how many steps, how much time? I mean, this is a huge question that does vary a lot depending on the type of customer you're going after, but maybe Kevin, you can start off by sharing how you guys approach this at PatientPop.
So, relatively similar, I would say, actually across like industries. If I'm painting like my perfect outbound cadence, it's about 60 days long. It has 2 to 3 direct mail pieces built into it.
Okay.
And humor built through all of it, right? So I don't believe in sending swag for the company. I don't believe in that. It doesn't matter. No one wants a PatientPop mug, right? Like, I got these socks from a vendor. That's cool.
Yeah, you're not going to wear them, right?
But I might have these socks. I'm not going to think about who sent them, but I want humor tied in. So I've posted about this before. So like, I'll go and Google funny doctor coffee mug, funny doctor t-shirt, funny doctor meme. Worst things about being a doctor. What I hate about being a doctor. This funny thing happened as a doctor. Funny doctor poster, right? Like, so I'll do that for my personas. Now I have funny things that they think are funny. Not what I think are funny, what they think are funny, right? And then I can tie in all of that messaging, right? So I have a coffee mug, for example, that says, don't confuse your Google search with my medical degree. How do you think doctors feel about that?
Oh, they love that one.
Okay. Yeah. And then when the follow-up email ties in that same sort of messaging around Google, because that's part of what we do, now it makes sense, right? So that my ideal one is 2 to 3 small direct mail drops. Don't send a drone. Don't send super expensive. I've tried big. I've tried small. The smaller and more tied in the messaging, the better. And what that direct mail does is it gives the rep another reason to call. And that's the biggest thing missing with most sales reps is they don't have another reason to call. They know they're just spinning away, right? So that's my ideal. About 60 days, 3 direct mail drops spread out across about 2 to 3 weeks with 2 to 3 email and call touches in between each one. There you go. Try it. Promise.
I mean, as you were just saying all that, I opened up my notepad and just put that humor idea back into my notes because about how where infotainment is huge, and it's a way to stand out and differentiate in a world of where most marketing and sales in B2B is just quite frankly boring and shitty. Adam,
real quick, last touch on that, because what I'm looking for from prospects as well is I want soft or haha notes.
Mm-hmm.
Follow me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they can't even be mad at you. It's like, I got it. It was cheesy, but no, we're not interested. Yep. Okay, but now I've gotten somewhere, right? It wasn't just an unsubscribe. It wasn't just, we've definitely had like doctors, prospects go like, all right, let's talk. That was fun.
That's right.
Right? Like, and a lot of people doing direct mail right now, they do it once. They do one drop. That's not how marketers should work. You don't do anything once. Multiple small drops across multi-week. That's how you get it done.
That's right. Adam, thoughts on this?
Yeah, Kevin and I talked about this at Dreamforce for about an hour and geeked out over direct mail. I mean, we love direct mail as a channel, and we do a similar approach. And so I think one of the other things too, from a marketing standpoint, is a lot of times it's like they send one piece, but also they're not even thinking about the other channels. So like we send one piece and then use like Sigster for email banners that are tied into it. We're retargeting that company with ads around it. We're doing a whole bunch of like things around the direct mail piece. And the direct mail piece, to your point, like doesn't need to be a drone. We've tried drones. We've tried just about everything. We've also sent pennies to people. And the messaging was like, hey, 90% of buyers do research online. You have 2 options. Go claim your page on G2 Crowd or take this penny and throw it in a wishing well and hope they find you. Mm-hmm. And like people get a penny and they're like, what the hell is this? Right? Like, and then when you reach out, it's like, oh, you're the guy who sent me the penny, right? Like that's way more memorable than the 50 coffee mugs or 50 pairs of socks or whatever. So we've tried things like pennies, pinatagrams. I mean, we've tried a whole bunch of just random things. And it just make it memorable, whether it's funny or totally random or whatever. And it's actually a fun like exercise to say like, okay, let's start with whatever. Like, what would happen if we sent someone an empty, vitamin water bottle? Like, what would the messaging be around that? And it actually gets the creative juices flowing. Like, it doesn't really matter what it is. You could be anything, and you could probably tie in messaging around it. But then it just makes it even more memorable. So I love that. And then the other thing we do on some of our outbound sequences is getting away from like promising like features, like talking about like buyer intent, and actually like talking about the end state. So some of the things we're testing out now is like we send an email that's like close 1 deal alert. So like the same kind of alerts you would get internally. And then the note is a very similar note to what our reps send when they close a deal, saying like, hey, first saw this pop up in my buyer intent data. The BDR had them reach out. They were able to schedule a meeting, whatever, we closed 1 at this month, right? And then like the message is like, imagine if you were able to get a sales alert like this because you're leveraging buyer intent. That's like promised land. It's like, oh, I get it now, versus us trying to explain like buyer intents when somebody visits your page on G2 and they run a compare report and then you get alerted to that and then your BDRs can reach out. Like just give them the end result, which is what they want ultimately. Like, and that'll pique their interest. So
what he just did there, and this is where I think sales goes next. What's missing from sales and from marketing right now is the how. It used to be about the what and the why. Well, the what and the why is online now. You can see that. What you just did in that email process is you showed them the how. Here's how it actually will apply to your world. So you didn't, the end result, yeah, they closed like the deal, but I can picture the how now, right? Most sales and marketing messaging skips that completely.
Yeah.
We're working out of here. Hey, we get you new patients. End result. They're like, okay, that's the what. Why? You can make more money. Like, but how the fuck do you do that?
Right, that's right.
That is where sales and marketing, I believe, has to go next. Is how does it fit into my world? How can I envision it? How do I even get it done? Right? You got people out there right now. If you talk to most of these big software companies, one of the biggest problems they have is product utilization. They don't even use the full product. They're missing how.
That's right.
How is what matters.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to most solutions, there's like one core feature that is like heavily used, and the rest is just kind of there. And this also reminds me of like how Corona does marketing, and I tell my team that we need to apply this as much sales, and it helps a lot. But sales is very eager to get into feature dumping, and it's just the way it is. They're excited about it. They want to make the sale. They think that if I can wow this prospect by this feature can do this and this feature can do that, that they'll think that we're super techie and great, and then they'll get excited about it, and then I'll make the sale. But actually what happens is when you market like Corona and you just go to the end state and you say, because Corona doesn't market by saying, oh, our beer tastes so great. It comes in this beautiful bottle. Look at the rich color of how the beer looks. When you crack it open and you hear that, it just makes you want to drink it more. Like, they don't really say that. They market it by, you're on the beach, feet in the sand. The breeze is hitting. They put you into this sort of, future state. And of course, like they don't tell you the how, right? They don't tell you how they made the beer and how they got you there. But just simplifying the process to, okay, if we can get you to this future state, then it's going to make this whole thing more appealing.
So who's nailing that though right now is Coors Light. I love marketing because I get to watch and see what they're trying to do. Coors Light, I think, is doing it perfectly right now. If you watch their most recent campaigns, right, there is a commercial of two guys waking up early, like on a Sunday morning, making a sloppy breakfast, closing the blinds, sitting down, beer comes out of pocket for the pregame for the football game. Right? Another one of a woman coming home from work. She's tired. She's stressed out. She comes out. She goes, grabs the beer, sits down. Bra comes out from underneath the shirt, right, and throws it off, and it's taking the bra off beer, right? Like, they're actually putting it into the real life because Corona, yes, I'd love to be on a beach, but I'm freaking not.
That's right.
I'm not on a beach. Coors is that they're coming into the how of real life. People do pregame. People do want that 9. Oh, they have a shower beer one too. The official beer of shower beer, right? The how, right? They're getting into their people's life, and like, this is how our product fits into it. So you can aspire for Corona, and I'm going to be on the beach. But damn it, when I want a shower beer before the football game this Sunday, which one's going to pop into my mind?
That's right. The shower beer, the more closer to proximity beer.
It's into the how of my life. So it's marketing, because I get to watch what they're trying to go for. They nailed that campaign. Absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I will say that. All right, guys. So we have reached the end. Kevin, I want to thank you. Adam, thank you for being with us. It's been so good. We are at the time limit. We're at the top of the hour. I did drop Kevin's LinkedIn into the chat just now. I did drop Adam's right under that, and mine as well. So, hit up Kevin, hit up Adam on LinkedIn. Make sure you guys connect. And to summarize, this will be sent out automatically in a follow-up email. You can subscribe to Nextiva on YouTube, and you'll see the replay there as well. And Matt, thank you. I appreciate that question, and I'm glad we were able to satisfy that. But there's some other questions in here we didn't quite get to. Feel free to follow up with Kevin, Adam, or myself. And as always, guys, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll catch you next time. Take it easy, fellas. Appreciate you being with us. Take care.